Okay, welcome back to the Brass Monkey podcast, where each week we dive into the stories, the songs, and the creative minds shaping Australian music at our favourite venue down in the Shire. Today, we're joined by an artist who's coming up at the Brass Monkey and has one of the most, I think, distinctive voices in the whole country. A singer, a songwriter, frontwoman of the Jezebels, Hayley Mary. Known for her powerful lyricism, emotional intensity, and fearless evolution as an artist, Hayley's continued to carve her path now through solo work and beyond, and we're thrilled to have her not only on the podcast, but at the Brass Monkey come February 6th. So, Hayley, welcome to the Brass Monkey podcast. Thanks so much for your time and your patience with our tech issues.
How nice are you? That was a lovely intro. Wow. Thank you for having me, Adam. As we were just saying, I host a very small podcast, so I fully understand tech issues. But yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be coming up.
We'll touch base on your podcast a little bit later on, but I want to start with, you've spent a long time in the public eye through the Jezebels. When you decide to step into that solo space, what feels differently for you creatively as well as personally?
Everything. I don't know. It was a long time. It wasn't really so much a decision to step into the solo space as like a void that was created by the band being less active. I probably always thought I might do it, but it was really when, a long time ago now, 2016 or something, when Heather's ovarian cancer, which I believe she's now fully in remission, but has been for quite a while, but she obviously has to monitor it still. But we ended up having to cancel those kind of world tours, and then it sort of just became a unsustainable thing to, you know how music is. It's kind of got to be growth and constant. You can't just like go away and come back and be sustainable. You have to constantly be feeding the beast. So we just kind of decided to take a step back from things and just do the occasional gig here and there. And I just found that it was a bit too, it was a kind of emptiness. So I just started writing. But the hardest thing for me was, and still is, I think I'm only just starting to find my vibe or something. And the problem is I'm quite a all over the shop person. Like I don't have a identity / brand that like is just obvious. Like I'm obviously this kind of person, or I'm obviously that kind of genre, so it's difficult because when you're in a band that's defined by the other players, you bring certain things, but it's limited in a good way by what everyone likes, which is only like a window of stuff that all 3 or 4 or however many people are gonna get behind. When you're a solo artist, you kind of like, theoretically the sky's the limit. Like I could work with this producer, I could write this kind of song, I could blah, 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 which is actually quite oppressive in a way. I think limitations are liberating, which is the opposite to what you'd think.
That's funny you use that word, liberating.
Yeah.
I think it takes a certain level of liberation and maturity and bravery when you do have a band and realise that you might have plateaued for a period of time. You might need to step away rather than just keep recycling, and then I suppose it diminishes all that time and that effort and that magic that you created for that period of time. So I think that takes a certain level of bravery from you and the band members to move away from that. Truly to be commended on that, because we've seen so many times that doesn't happen, and unfortunately then musicians, whether it be solo or bands, unfortunately they devalue, I suppose, their ladder into their career because of what they've done in the future. So I think that's a brave move, and I think that's good. But
well, it was sort of out of necessity, but you can flog a dead horse. I know what you mean.
Yes, and I've been to 9 Kiss farewell tours, so that's a dead. Your songwriting, then, I think it's very emotionally raw. I think it's fearless, and I want to ask you, Hayley, where does that honesty come from, and has it changed over time as you've grown as an adult and as a musician?
No, I think the honesty is something, for better or worse, I'm stuck with, which it's not easy in life having that. I think I got it from my dad and my mom, actually. My mom's quite tactless and my dad's pretty brutal. Neither of them are very good at like lying or kind of, making it nicer, more palatable. They just say things how they sort of see them. And I suppose maybe that is just kind of my character. And then that resonates in my songwriting. I suppose you can have a little bit more room to move in songwriting because you can play roles and you can play with ideas and stories that aren't even your own, and you can pretend. And I don't think there's anything dishonest about it not being like necessarily what, like I change as a person. and I change like the ideas that I'm exploring. So some songs will conflict with other songs in terms of their messaging or whatever, but they were honest at the time, or they were, I guess, authentic interest in that at the time, sort of thing. Not sure that really answers your question, but
No, no.
yeah, no, I
Sounds
don't feel
like
like my approach has changed, but I change a lot. I'm a bit of a changeling, but I'm always pretty, yeah. You can feel when something's a little bit forced or fake, or
mm,
it's hard to explain.
I think
Yeah.
that thing that a lot of artists struggle with is that balancing that, I suppose, that vulnerability with, on the other side, self-protection. And I think that's something which, as musicians and artists, you have to really be able to be comfortable with in yourself, and be comfortable with those people around you as well, whether they be about family or friends or things, situations you've been in. I think it's a real struggle that so many artists face, but I think you've got quite a healthy grasp on it.
Well, I don't think you actually need to protect yourself as much as you think in terms of, I think there's strength in vulnerability, particularly in the art. There's something about the stage or the space, like let's call it the stage is the physical manifestation of it, but a song or art or whatever, these artifacts that you create, they're not yourself anymore. So you're kind of protected by it being not you. Like, I'm a big believer that you can actually separate the art and the artist. Not to say they're not connected, but like, it's not like you have to be like, yeah, that's definitely me. You know, like, we imagine things, like a lot of your favorite songs and stuff that like about people that you have nothing in common with, or written by people who you have nothing in common with, and that kind of thing. It's about transcending. So I feel like if you protect yourself too much, you won't really make anything that good. You need to protect yourself with boundaries on like what you're willing to do for people and that kind of stuff. But I don't, your time and your energy, but I don't think you need to protect yourself creatively. I think you kind of need to push as much as you can into something honest.
Are there artists that have influenced you differently? Solo artists, now yours doing the solo thing, songwriters especially, that have influenced you, find that voice, to find that songwriter that you've had the inspiration from?
Doing this tour is interesting because I thought I probably wasn't ever going to tour again. And then I enrolled in a law degree this year, and I thought, if I start the law degree, I probably will never tour again. After the kind of shenanigans I've created for myself in recent years, somewhat distancing myself from the music industry as I knew it, I thought, wow, I better arrange a tour, because otherwise I can just see myself, it just drifting away. Music just becoming something that isn't part of my life anymore. So I got to kind of force myself to do it. And in doing that, because I'd sort of fallen out of love with music a little bit, maybe because I've attached, you know, when it's this is a convoluted answer to your question, but I am coming back around to it. Maybe, you know, when you do it professionally, for so long, like I actually did it professionally since I was 19 or something, you can lose a bit of love, like with, you know, that youthful love of music that fans have, like when you're a fan of music. And I think when it becomes your job, you can get a little bit cynical. Sometimes you see behind the songs and you're sort of cynical of, you know, a lot of the artists, and you're like, I don't really get the same kind of reverie that I used to get before I did this myself, kind of thing. Anyway, I might, you know, be unique in that. But basically, after taking some time off, I started playing covers again. Like covers of my favorite songs when I was a kid. And that has actually made me like music again. So and then discovering what it was that I was searching for every time I was making, or when I was making a song. And I rediscovered Concrete Blonde. Jeanette Napolitana, I think, is the name of the girl.
That's her.
I'm like, there's something about this sort of ode to the lost soul that I'm obsessed with. There's a bunch of songs like it, like, I don't know, there's a sort of gothic, desert gothic thing to it. Songs like Hazard by Richard Marx. I don't know if you remember that song. Runaway Train by, what were they called? Soul Asylum?
Whole song, yeah.
Do you remember that? I actually met them once a few years ago, weirdly. But I didn't have the heart to tell him that I loved his song when I was 4, because he was getting a bit chatty, and I was like, I feel like when you go, I love that one song, like when I was 4, it just makes them feel like, you know. But it was one of my favorite songs. Anyway, those kind of Lost Soul songs, I've always been obsessed with them, like this kind of sense of someone who could fall, like a bit free falling. There's a kind of American free falling Tom Petty sort of vibe to it, where it's like they could have glory or they could end up in a ditch on the side of the road. You know, like they're just teetering, like they're these amazing magic people that, but they can potentially fall into tragedy quite easily. I'm kind of really fascinated with that, and it has informed a lot of, like, even early, like first Jezebels song, Disco Biscuit Love, was a little bit about that, and then I've started writing new songs, and one of them is about another lost soul, but I think it might be me this time. But yeah, I'm obsessed with that song. You know that song, Joey?
Yeah.
Do you know it well?
Yeah, exactly.
It's absolutely iconic in just this, and I feel I'm going to tell this story multiple times. I'll probably tell it on the tour, but it is about, for those who don't know, an alcoholic guy who is the ex-lover, I think, of the singer. And she's basically saying, you know, she's worried about him. She doesn't know what's going on, but she wants him to know that she's not angry anymore, like she's forgiven him or whatever. And the line is, you know, and if you're somewhere drunk and passed out on the floor, Joey, I'm not angry anymore. And I heard that song when I was 4, and I really cared about this guy. Like, I was like, I really want to know this guy's all right. I can tell he's real. He might not be, whatever. But then I had the luck of meeting a photographer that Tony Mott, like a huge rock photographer who photographed everyone. We did a photo shoot with him many years ago, and he was, you know, telling us all his rock and roll stories about the Rolling Stones and Paul McCartney and Debbie Harry and all these people that, like, you know, one should be impressed by, and I was. But then somehow Concrete Blonde came up, and they're actually fairly obscure. You know, they're not massive band.
They have toured here a couple of times.
They have a couple of hits.
Yeah,
as well.
She did a solo tour a couple of years ago too.
Yeah.
The basement. Yeah.
But I think they're kind of cultish still. You know, it's not Blondie or like the Rolling Stones or something. And that's when my eyes lit up, and I was like, "What?" And he'd actually dated her, right? And he dated John Napolitana back at some point, and I was like, "You know John Napolitana?" And he was like, "Yeah." Like he was surprised that I was so shocked by it, so excited by that, and then but not by, you know, Mick Jagger or whatever stories that he was telling. And I was like, I need to know, is Joey real? And he was like, yeah, Joey's real. Like, he was kind of off it. Yeah. It could have been like she cheated on him with Joey. I don't know. And I was like, I need to know, do you think he's okay? Like, where did he end up? And he was like, to be honest with you, Joey's probably still somewhere drunk and passed out on the floor. And I was just like, oh, get it together, Joey. And I still feel this raw emotion, that power that you could feel something so strong for a stranger your whole life through a song. And so obviously I don't think I've ever achieved that in any of my songs, but I'm kind of seeking that a little bit, like, and that feeling.
It's funny how that mythology almost it attracts us to music and so on. I remember there's a photo of Dolly Parton, like in the 60s. I mean, she's still stunning. She just turned 82 or something, 80. But this photo, and she looks absolutely stunning.
Well,
all dressed in. She looks very well for the 80. This photo probably is about 1968.
She's unwell.
Oh, she's unwell.
Her sister said recently. But anyway.
Okay.
She might, hopefully it passes.
But I remember seeing this photo, and she looks absolutely stunning. You know, and I put a post out once that said, if this is how she looked, imagine how hot Jolene must have looked, you know, because that was the woman. Yeah. And it was so true. And it sort of created this mythology. And people have asked her in the past, same thing. Was Jolene real? And so on. Because, like, if she looked like this when she recorded the song, how amazing must have this Jolene woman have looked? So, and you want to get to that. You know, I worked with Meatloaf for several times. I asked about the background of the songs and so on. Jim Steinman, who wrote all those songs for him, would write about his own youth, but also then as he got to know Meatloaf, about Meatloaf's own youth, like Paradise by the Dashboard Light, how a big hurling football player with an operatic voice would then try and be involved with a woman on a Saturday night and have been fumbling his way through, and his immaturity and his puberty, all these things, and they were love songs. Or 2 Out of 3 Ain't Bad was an ode to old Western love songs, you know, and things like that. And it's funny, but I don't find that in sometimes maybe in literacy and in books and so on, but I find that music encapsulates this. And I've sat around tables, as I'm sure you have, talking about a certain song for hours, and I have a go in bed with people.
Some music, not a lot doesn't really do it for me these days. But not to sound old, but fuck it.
I have a running bet with someone, and it's a good way to win a bet at any pub or dinner you're at. Question is, who wrote Wagon Wheel? The famous Wagon Wheel song.
No idea.
It's Bob Dylan.
Yeah, right.
And he never recorded it. He wrote it 50 years before Old Crow Medicine Show actually recorded it. But no one knows this, and now it's the most lauded song.
Also took a lot from folk, though. That was an interesting time, wasn't it? Because I remember hearing a story, I don't know what his version's called. My name, it is nothing. My age, it means less. The country I live in is called the Midwest. That is actually a rip of like a folky song. And I don't know if it was a guy that wrote it or a guy that was quite popular for singing it, called The Patriot Game. Like an Irish, I think it was Irish. And my name is O'Hanlon, and I've just turned 16. Yeah, and apparently the guy saw Bob Dylan at one of his concerts. But the interesting thing with that era of music is like you're taking from folk, and folk is the music of the folk, like it's everyone's. But then in like American, post-war capitalism, they start really commodifying the, intellectual property, which I have, respect for the process of that, because I think otherwise how else do you make money? And I believe in property and intellectual property, but like it's just a funny thing because it didn't used to, the concept didn't always exist, it was just songs, and until they could mass produce it and send it out, no one really staked a claim on any of them. So all these earlier artists that's like were staking claims on melodies that had actually been resonating through centuries, through different cultures, they were really lucky because they just happened to be there at this time. And obviously, you can still come up with them, but a lot of them are taken for ages now, like in perpetuity. And you never really feel like you're coming up with an original melody. It's kind of because you're not. Like they've all sort of been done, but it's how you twist them and combine them with other things and then turn them into your own and hope no one notices that they probably exist somewhere else. But I went on a ramble there, but just an interesting thing. Do you need some water? I've got some. It's very hot here.
With that in mind, where does the song start for you? Is it lyrics? Is it a melody? Is it an emotion, or is it something else different entirely? Or is it change per song, I suppose?
It changes, yeah, for sure. A lot, and it will often influence the type of song it becomes. Like, you think about a song like Disintegration by The Cure. It's like, I don't know, he might have come up with the words first, but it feels like the kind of song that he was jamming and they were jamming for ages, and then some spoken word emerged. For me, it's like, but then you have songs, and I have a lot of that, like with the Jezebels, it would be a bit kind of like, all right, when we started writing together more, because obviously it started first a little bit more singer-songwriter meets musicians, and then we made, so some of the earlier songs were a bit more straightforward, songy. And then when we started writing together, it was sort of, I would sit there and go, all right, like you guys should jam for ages in a room. And then I would just sit there with one of those, this was before iPhones, that's how old I am again. With one of those like voice recorder things and just like record
Wasn't the tape player, we had to press play and record at the same time, was it?
It was a bit smaller than that, yeah, a bit more techie. And I would just record them all, and then I would kind of stick them together and edit them and go, that's the verse and that's the chorus, and you should play that more times. And then I'd write lyrics over it. But then a lot of the time, most of the time, when when the muses are smiling upon me, it will come in a melody, and the melody will have a shape, and the shape dictates what words kind of fit in it. And then I will try and write the words that fit in it, and hopefully they make sense. And generally they do, but they also don't, and that's fine. I've got a couple of songs that actually have gibberish in them because I couldn't, if you're trying to, like if you force the wrong word in, it sounds bad and you shouldn't do it. That's my opinion. But a great singer can make the wrong can make the wrong words sound right. But yeah, So a lot of particularly early songwriting was more about, phonetics, I suppose. But then I think this is probably the more country approach, and I definitely have quite a few songs like this now where it's like an idea, like that happened and I want to write a song about it. I just wrote one the other day about this soldier I met many years ago, in a British soldier, and it's like, though when a story is good enough, then you kind of get that thing that Bruce Springsteen talks about of like the best ones are true. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like Joey's one of those. They're not so much about an aesthetic, they're about like a story that really hits. You get that in country with that specificity a lot, like, like DIVORCE, divorce kind of thing. It's like, this is about some people and it really happened and it's specific. Yeah, so I've got a few of those that are kind of more stories that you then musicify or melodify or whatever. But yeah, no, it's all around. There's no.
But it's funny you say that, because I think too, as we grow as fans of music and also as adults, songs take on a different context. I remember years ago, I had friends who were in the church of Bruce Springsteen. I said, I just don't get some of the lyrics. And Bill Chambers said to me, yes, you will. You'll get Springsteen, you'll get Dylan at some point. And he was right. In the last 2 years, 18 months, I've just gotten the songs of The Cure. You mentioned The Cure before and so on, and Robert Smith. And some of these songs are fantastically written and structured songs. Yes, they're great pop music and that sort of CBGB sort of vein as well. But they're actually fantastically written songs. And we've got a poster in my other office, and it talks about the evolution of songwriting. And it says, it's got Frank Sinatra on one side, and it's got, I've got the world on a string and the string around my finger. And then on the other side, it's got a picture of Justin Bieber, and the lyrics are, baby, 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 oh, baby, baby, baby. This is the evolution of songwriting, But I think it's...
No, I think you find it's like Baby No on one of them.
Yes, I didn't want to admit that I know the lyrics there, Hayley, but thank you for that. You just got you on tape saying that. So, but yeah, it takes on different perspectives, and that's the good part about music as well, that I think it inspires us, it can heal us, it can drive us, it can do all these different things. And that's one thing we're going to get to share live when we do have you at the Brass Monkey on February 6th. So let's talk about that. What's a live show mean to you now compared to earlier in your career?
Oh, it's a very changed thing. How do I even...
Is it cathartic?
Yeah, but it's actually quite scary.
Mm-hmm.
Just finding... So I've had to change... Like, my solo career has been a bumpy ride. So Jezebels, again, it's kind of like, it just is how it is, and it works how it works, and it works well, and you've got these amazing players behind you. So that, as to a singer who's not actually really, like, a musician per se, that it's a scary thing to, like, try and go out on your own when you've been playing with really good musicians. So then I had session players, but there's always the practicality of that, like getting the right ones, the right locations, they're all available at the same time, you're chopping and changing. None of them are actually invested in the band as much as people in the band would be. Plus you've got the logistics, and people don't want to hear about this, but I don't really care. Like the logistics of travel, paying, like it's so expensive. It's so expensive to be a solo artist. And then, my first EP came out in 2020. So I hit my first EP tour and it got cancelled straight away from COVID. So I've had a pretty bumpy ride. And then trying to survive the COVID period, I set up 2 bands, which is twice the kind of investment and time, and then you're playing less frequently. And I've never really had what the Jezebels had, which was like slogging it out with the same 4 people on the stage for years and just getting better and better and better live. And it became pretty much just impractical, and like it just never really happened. Like the last band I toured Roman Excess with was just a 3-piece, because it was like, this is just the only way I could do it. And so I've become obviously less of a purist in the sense of like the rock and roll thing. The sad thing is I do really like my voice with a bit of a wall of sound behind it. Like there's only very few songs to me that sound good with me singing them as a singer-songwriter, like stripped back. Maybe that's an insecurity thing, but I think that's just the timbre of my voice is a little bit thin and it works better with other instruments behind it rather than just an acoustic guitar. But so Yeah, it's been a real struggle. And then obviously I have taken a political stance that basically just means that no musician will ever come near me again, which gratefully is the limitation perhaps I needed, because when you're sitting there trying to have a 6 piece, or maybe I should have a 4 piece, and got to navigate all this stuff that I've just explained, when no one will work with you, then you're like, all right, well, I guess I have to be a solo artist now, like fully embrace it and not just go like, oh, I'll do it because I have to. It's like, this is me now. This is the only thing I can rely on. To an extent, I've embraced the singer-songwriter like on my own, trying to get better at guitar. Which, it's funny. A lot of people play guitar and sing, but I will say that it's harder than just singing, and it's harder than just playing guitar, doing the two at once. But then, so embracing that, trying to get better at that, which you only get really good by playing live. You can practice all you want, but so, this is going to be a vulnerability thing of going out and playing, and then also I've kind of taken again, anti-purist technological kind of stance, and just decided to automate players to an extent with tracks to kind of give the show dynamics and the kind of vibe that I feel like I want it to have at the moment. Playing around with a couple of more stripped back songs, but I just figure there's these old school rules of you try and play as much as you can or you don't have backing track. And then you see Billie Eilish going out there making millions on her own on stage. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's not the same, and DJs just pressing buttons and shit. And it's like, well, yeah, okay, my music's rock, so it's not appropriate always to just have backing tracks, but I've kind of tweaked the songs a bit to serve a bit more of a 80s sounding backing track vibe. Like they're a bit different, and it is solo, and it's not going to sound like the records, but the songs are the songs, and it's me on my own. It's a bit bigger and more satisfying to me than just me with an acoustic going, I know 3 chords, So it is once again being very vulnerable coming out. But I suppose what's cool about solo stuff is you can take the time and talk about those things that we were talking about, like say with Concrete Blonde, or where the song came from, or that kind of thing, which just never really works in a band context. To me, sitting there having a monologue while there's 4 other people on stage is just weird. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that element of it.
But I think that I liken it almost to being like the Tom Hanks character on The Castaway. You're on an island and you've got to learn how to survive. But
What's his name? Wilson, the friend.
Yeah, Wilson, that's it. Your songwriting and your message and your stance and your position and so on, it's admirable. And I think what's going to happen, I'm not sure if this has happened to you or whatever yet, but it's going to connect with one person and make a difference to that one person's life. A lot of musicians, I'm pretty sure I'm getting that if someone was to come up to you and say, hey, that song or that show changed my life or made me change life and motivate me, I think that makes it all worthwhile. And I think that's an interesting thing because, let's be frank, the lifestyle, the path you've chosen, and I've talked to this about a lot of musicians, is quite difficult because, like most of us, you've probably got a full-time job during the day, and then you've got to do social media and write and record and rehearse and get in the car on tour and all these things. Then on top of it, keep up with the internet, then plan the next album. That's another 2 or 3 full-time jobs in itself, this process. So it's not a $1 million industry, we know that, but it's a labor of love, and I think that comes through on stage for artists like yourself, and I think that's something to be admired from an artist's point of view as well as from an audience point of view.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've actually only really recently transitioned to seeing it as like a hobby or something, and it took me kind of feeling like I was essentially quitting it because it was a profession for me for many years, and it was my full-time job. But that led me to fall out of love with it in many ways, like I said at the start, because it connected music with the industry and all the rules that I felt had become tyrannical in that industry. And so now seeing it as not a job, I've fallen back in love with it, and I'm like, I actually do want to tour for the joy, And if it's a hobby that makes me some money, great. I have a rule that I'm not going to let it cost me money. Like I'm not going to do any shows that lose me money, and that's a lot easier on your own as well. But apart from that, like I am just seeing it as a hobby, and I like singing, and when I took it out of my life, it made me quite sad, you know. So I thought there's nothing more kind of pure than the way I'm approaching it now. It reminds me of when I started, you know, and why you started when you're young, before you know all that crap. So I kind of feel youthful again with it, like, which is nice.
I met Guy Clark once, a country songwriter from Texas, and he said, you know, music's like a siren singing to us and luring us in with her voice, and you know, we're driving us to drive the ship towards the rocks from the shore, you know, because we hear that voice. You know, I'm not a singer, thank Christ for everyone else, but you know, I've had situations where I've done a thing where I've walked away from music to try and work on things else. And I remember I did one last gig. I promoted one last gig, and it was a massive success. And my uncle was there, my late uncle was there, and he said, "This is fantastic. This is the worst possible thing for you to, because you're back in, you love it again, but you're going to spend the rest of your life chasing it now, aren't you?" And I went 100%, you know. And it's almost part of that, and my own parents who supported me through it as well. It's a
compulsion.
Yeah, I was about to say it's compulsory. It's an addiction. I cannot walk away, because you want to see what happens next. You want to hear what happens next. And that's one of the great things we're going to get to share, and we're going to get to see and hear you live at the Brass Monkey on February 6th. So tickets now on sale. Last question. I asked the same last question of everyone, and so much thank you for your time. But when you walk on stage, what's it like to be Hayley Mary in that moment?
Well, I know what it used to be like. I'm not sure what it will be like is it a watershed? Is that the word? When your life breaks into two and you go one way? I've definitely embarked upon a new chapter of my life. So I'm not sure. I don't know how it's going to feel. Like I feel I'm assuming the people coming to the shows are not coming there to hate on me and judge me, but they could be.
I don't know who
they are. I don't know who they are. I don't know who's coming. Because I decimated my fan base with my political leanings last year. And so I actually have no idea. I'm a little bit scared, a little bit excited. I wonder if it's new people. I wonder if it's people who just like the music and don't care about that stuff and nothing's going to change. I wonder if it's, you know, people who will come despite the fact that they don't like my leanings. I have no idea. I don't know if it's going to be relevant at all. It's kind of nerve-wracking going back on stage after kind of, what's the word? I copped a lot of hate. Like, it was pretty horrendous. It's fine. I knew I would. Like, I was prepared. But it does on occasion affect the psyche. Like, it gets in the cracks and you go, am I just the most hated person ever? But then you kind of get over it and go, no, like, you're just a small blip in the world and no one really cares that much. They're just trolls on the internet. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm feeling like I've never felt before, to be honest. And I think it would be much easier to not get back on stage again, because I'm quite, I don't know, I have no idea, but I've got to for that reason. So yeah, who knows? Didn't answer your question, but
no, that's
trepidatious, fine. I would say, but also a little bit. Can I swear?
Yeah, like yourself.
Like a little bit. Fuck you. Like, like I feel pretty resolved that I'm allowed to do this, and it's taken finding a new team and like, people didn't want to work with me on every level of the industry, and it's taken finding a new team and navigating. It took a year and a half. Like, that people tried to book me shows and people didn't want to have me and that kind of thing. So navigating that was like paving. I feel like I'm paving a new path in a small little way, and that's very exciting, but also it's always risky. You know, you never know who's going to pull out or get pressure to, you know, it's a bit of a wild card, I suppose.
Yeah. I think we're going to have a great audience there for you, an audience that has respect for the music, respect for your opinions, but also wants to hear your songs. My personal request, you got to play The Lonely One, otherwise there'll be a riot. That's my favorite song.
I will play The Lonely One.
It's definitely a great song.
That's good. Okay.
It's definitely, but you're going to get to see your audience there. They're going to be there for you, and we're all going to get together on February 6th down at the Brass Monkey. Thank you so much for your time this evening. This is the incredible Hayley Mary. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story and your opinions and So openly, honestly, everyone out there, guys, tickets now on sale. Make sure you check out Hayley's latest releases. Catch her live at the Brass Monkey or anywhere else on the tour. We're going to put up all the dates on the story notes today. And follow her journey wherever you get your music. We're going to get to share it together. As I say, 6th of February down at the Brass Monkey. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share the Brass Monkey podcast. Hayley, where can people follow you online?
Hayley Mary Music is generally my handle on Instagram and all the other things. I mainly use Instagram because that was the era in which I was born.
I'm still using MySpace.
I guess I'm sort of on. They still exist. That's good. I'm sort of on Facebook, not as active. I think I've got all the other things. You know, the essentials go on there. But you can also email me.
Link?
Yes, please do. And yeah, you can also email me at hayleymarymusic@gmail.com. You know, because whatever. I'm a bit DIY these days. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was really great chatting with you. Actually,
thank you very much, and we'll see you.
Questions.
And all the punters down there, 6th of February at the Brass Monkey. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Adam. See you later.
Bye-bye.
All right, so I...